bring us to the end of this course. Today we are going to discuss the topics in chapter number 11, Attitudes to Language. In this chapter we are going to talk about attitudes to pronunciation and accent, and we talk about the effect, and then we will talk briefly about the final exam and the exam questions. Attitudes to pronunciation and accent. The way in which something is said is often as influential for the message as what is said. So we have two main points. The first one is the way that we talk and the thing that we are talking about. So the way in which we express our feelings, our topic, our conversation is very important. It is as important as the topic itself. So the way we say something is very important. It is as important as the topic itself. We commonly have stereotypical ideas about people on the basis of their accent. Sometimes you meet somebody from a specific country and you have a stereotypical way of judging this person. You have a preconceived idea about this person, that if he is, for example, from Gulf countries, you would think that he has come from a very rich country because of oil. If he is from the UK or from Europe, you would think that the country is very much developed and this has affected this person in a way or another. This is what's called a stereotypical judgment of individuals. So we commonly have those stereotypical ideas, preconceived ideas about the people that we meet. One example of a stereotypical way of judging people, of having preconceived ideas about people, is the idea of the country's pumpkin. The country's pumpkin. This image, as you can see in this slide, is an example of what a country's pumpkin is. Is a person who is usually from a rural area, from a village, not from the city. He speaks or he behaves in a manner that indicates a lack of education, a lack of sophistication, a lack of intelligence. Countryside accent can be used to denote lack of intelligence with the stereotypical image of the country pumpkin. So sometimes when we meet somebody who's not from the urban area, not from the city life, but from the villages, from the rural areas, we have this idea that he is not educated, that he is not sophisticated, that he lacks education, that he lacks intelligence and sophistication. This is what's called the preconceived judgment. This is what's called the stereotypical judgment of the people that we meet. In the UK or in Europe in general, we have the idea of the country's pumpkin, who is a person who comes from a village, who is less educated, of a stereotypical type. He has this type of clothes, as you can see in this image, and he expresses or he shows lack of intelligence or lack of sophistication. And usually the countryside accent, the way those people pronounce the language or say the language, can be used to denote lack of intelligence with the stereotypical image of the country pumpkin. So here we have an image of a country pumpkin in the United States of America, and we have a web link through which you can access this image online if you want to. The second point is the attitude to pronunciation and accent, where we have an example from Libby Green in 1997, who points out that in the United States, lack of intelligence is associated with women with southern accent. Women with southern accent. So in the United States, people who live in the southern part of the United States, the way they talk is very special. They speak in a very specific accent that when they start to talk in a conversation, you can easily recognize, you can easily identify that this accent or this person has come from the southern of the United States, from the southern areas of the United States. He is a southerner, he is of a southern accent. So the point behind this is that people who are using this accent are usually thought of as being country's pumpkin, as being lacking sophistication, as being lack of intelligence. So according to this author, Libby Green, she says that in the United States, lack of intelligence, lack of sophistication, lack of cleverness is associated with women rather than men who speak the southern accent, who talk in the accent of the people who live in the south of the United States. And here we have an example of a person who is trying to tell us what is the southern accent would look like. If you press on this link, you can listen to how this lady is actually speaks the southern accent. It is an example that you can find on YouTube by clicking this source. So the main idea behind this is that women who speak southern accent are usually preconceived as being of less intelligence, as lacking intelligence or lacking sophistication. The second point we discuss is another example by the Daily Mail newspaper, who indicated that Birmingham accent or southern accent, a southern states accent, is linked with criminality. Is linked with criminality. That people who speak this accent are usually commit crimes. They always have trouble. They always make trouble. So Birmingham accent, United States southern accent are associated with crimes, with criminality. So they went so far to the extent of associating one person's accent with being a criminal, with being a very dangerous person who commits crimes. So an example is taken from the Daily Mail on the 1st of October 1997 report, reporting that crime suspects, those who are suspected as being a criminal with a Birmingham accent are twice as likely to be considered guilty. Again, crime suspect with a Birmingham accent are twice as likely to be considered guilty. So if you are from Birmingham, and you are speaking the Birmingham accent, and you were a suspect of a crime, you are twice as likely to be considered guilty, because the first thing is that you were a suspect of a crime, and the second is that you are from Birmingham and that you are speaking the accent of the Birmingham people. So this indicates that we sometimes associate the accent that people speak with criminality, with specific ideas, with preconceived ideas about those people or this group of people, and this is called stereotypical analysis of people, or stereotypical understanding of people, or categorization of people, to the extent that some people are suspected to be criminal just because they speak the accent. So Birmingham accent, southern state accent in the United States, are thought to be guilty of making crimes, and if somebody is really a suspect of a crime, we will think twice that he is really a criminal, simply because he speaks the accent. New Yorkese is similarly stigmatized, and its speakers are regarded as less trustworthy than those using the more standard American accent. Again, people who speak the accent of New York are also supposed to be preconceived, or they are preconceived or regarded as less trustworthy. If you think that this person is from New York, we would think twice before we trust him. So he is less trustworthy. This also indicates that people who are associated with a specific accent can be prejudged, can be stereotyped as being this type of people or that type of people. And the other example that we have here is that if you are from New York and you speak the dialect or the accent of New York, you will be thought of as being less trustworthy. People will not really have a good trust in you if you are speaking this particular accent. So Birmingham accent, southern state accent, and a New York accent, those people who speak these accents are really will encounter prejudgment, will have a stereotypical understanding of their behavior, to the extent that we sometimes associate Birmingham accent people, or people who speak the Birmingham accent, as being a criminal, or those who speak the southern state accent as being also criminal. So there is an association between a specific accent and criminality sometimes, and a specific accent and being non-trustworthy person. We need to understand what's meant by matched guise experiment. A definition of this term is given in this slide. A matched guise experiment is a method of investigating people's attitude. So it's a way of understanding, of researching people's attitude to what? To different languages. What does this experiment involve? It actually involves informants listening to several recordings of the same script spoken by the same speaker. The informants are then asked to judge each speaker's personal characteristics based on what they hear. So it is an experiment where we have one person giving, say, a lecture to some people who are listening to him. But the people who are listening will listen twice to this lecture, but this lecture will be recorded in two different ways. After the recording finish, after those people finish listening to the person, they will be asked, those informants, they will be asked to judge each speaker personal characteristics based on what they hear. So if you listen to a lecture by a teacher who is from the southern part of the United States, you will give specific judgment about this person, that, for example, you feel that he is not trustworthy, that you feel that he is a criminal. Why? Simply because he speaks that particular accent, simply because he speaks the southern state accent, or the Birmingham accent, or the New York accent. So what is this? Is that we are giving the subjects, or the informants, or people who participate in the experiments, we allow them to listen twice to the same person, but it is a different lecture, or it is the same person, but he records the lecture twice, so that the subjects or the participants think he is a different person. Then they start to give their judgment based on what they heard, based on the type of the accent that this person used. Is he a New Yorker? Is he a Birmingham speaker? Is he a southern state, United States speaker? Is he from the southern part of the United States? Then, based on the judgment, we will understand that there is an association between this particular accent and certain specific characteristics that we give or associate with people. Now we move to the effect of these attitude about or regarding languages. Number A, a survey quoted in Glasgow Herald on 28 October 1997 reported that in Britain, speakers with Scottish accent are rated the highest on sex appeal, sexual attractiveness. That if you speak the Scottish accent, you will be more attractive. Sexually, you are attractive. You will have a highest on sexual appeal. You will be rated as the highest on sexual appeal, and you will be classed or classified or categorized as highly or sexually attractive person. So we have now associated the accent, or a specific accent, with sexual appeal or with sexual attractiveness. So this is another example of how attitudes to language can have an influence, what effect they have on people and on the way people think. So one time we said southern accent would be associated with the criminality, as well as Birmingham accent will be associated with the criminality. A New York accent will give its speakers a feeling of being untrustworthy people. People will have will have a feeling of that those people who speak the New York accent are untrustworthy. And again, the example that we have here is that in the UK, people who have the Scottish accent will be thought of as having or as rated as being of a high sexual appeal, and that they are sexually attractive people. In the second example, in the United States, negative and criminal stereotypes are associated with the Spanish accent speakers. Again, if you are in the United States and you come across people or a group of people or a group of individuals who are having an English with a Spanish accent, or who basically speak Spanish and they are living in the United States, there is a stereotypical understanding or agreement that those people are basically negative and they tend to be criminals. Again, associating one accent or one type of language with criminality, with untrustworthiness, and with negative behavior in general. So up till now we have Southern accent criminality, Birmingham accent also criminality, New York accent untrustworthy, Scottish accent as being sexually attractive, and again a Spanish accent is untrustworthy, criminal, or negative behavior. We have another example by the same author, Libby Green, who says that stereotypes are reinforced in the media. That in the media, whether it is the newspaper, the TV, the radio, on the internet, the idea of stereotypical understanding of people is reinforced. It is emphasized. It is being focused on or concentrated on. Example, Mexican Americans are always portrayed negatively. In media, people who have Mexican American origin are usually reported or represented negatively. The example or the quotation is taken from Libby Green, who says that recent stereotypes in film and television have one thing in common. Again, recent stereotypes in film and television have one thing in common. What is this thing in common? Mexican Americans are almost always portrayed as violent. So anytime you have a person of a Mexican American origin, and when he is reported in the media, or when she is reported in the media, the report about this person is negative. They always portray those people as being violent, and that they are drug pushers, drug dealers, or drug addict, gang members, those who belong to a violent gang, and as pimps. So again, the idea behind this is that our stereotypical understanding of people, unfortunately, is sometimes stressed, sometimes emphasized in the media. Sometimes the media concentrate on a stereotypical understanding or a stereotypical preconceived analysis of people. And the example that Libby Green gives us here is that people who have Mexican American origin are always reported as being violent, are always reported as behaving negatively, or as being drug dealers, gang members, pimps, etc. The third example, or the fourth example, is again from Libby Green, who records the evidence of a research student who was discussing language styles with a businessman whose job was to hire sales personnel. The businessman was positive that he wouldn't hire anyone with a Mexican accent. Let's explain the idea again. So Libby Green gives us an example of a research student who was discussing language style with a businessman. Now, when this student met this businessman, the businessman was explaining to him that he feels very happy, he feels very comfortable that in his company there is no person, there is no worker from who speaks a Mexican accent. Why do you think he feels happy that there is nobody in the company who has a Mexican accent? Because if you think of the previous idea that people with a Mexican accent are associated with criminality, people with Mexican accent can have a negative behavior, or people with a Mexican accent can indicate less of trust, that they are not trustworthy, as we have seen in the previous example. So this businessman is very happy, is very comfortable, is very proud that his company has not hired, has not given a job to any person with a Mexican accent, because Mexican accent speakers are associated with negative behavior, are associated with criminality, are associated with being untrustworthy people, or are associated with less intelligence, as we have seen in the example of the southern accent speakers in the United States. So, as we said, the Libby Green tells us about a student who was in an interview with a businessman, and the businessman explained to him that his company has nobody or no worker, none of his staff is actually speaks the Mexican accent, which indicates that the Mexican accent is looked down at, because it is associated with criminality, less intelligence, violence, not positive behavior or negative behavior, etc. A further example is about the speakers of New York, or New Yorkies. New York speakers find their accent a liability, a problem, where we have this quotation in the Washington Post newspaper on the 16th of December 1997, where the journalist reports that natives of New York, people who speak the dialect of New York, or New Yorkers, or New Yorkies. So natives of New York can get rich faster. How? If they sound like they are from someplace else. Again, so native of New York can get rich faster. They become rich very quickly. Why? If they pretend, if they sound, if they look like they are from some place else, but not from New York. So if they claim that we are not New Yorkers, we are not from New York, but we are from another place, from another place, from somewhere else, so they will become rich faster. Why is that? Because if their manager, or if the businessman who hired them knows that they are from New York, they will be looked down at, because the stereotypical understanding of people from New York is that they are less trustworthy, or that they are negative, or that they are violent, etc. So they become rich faster if they are looking, or if they pretend, if they claim that they are not New Yorkers, but they are from another place other than New York. The final, or the one before the final example is in the UK, reports in the press indicate that the way people speak affect their job prospects. So the way that you speak, the way you say your words, the way you express yourself in conversation will affect your job prospects. Let's have the example from the Daily Telegraph on the 12th of March in 1994, where the story of an employee of a Birmingham company who was fired for having a Birmingham accent. So you lose your job simply because you have a Birmingham accent. It is to this extent that sometimes, because your manager, or your the person or the company who hires you, if they know that you are from Birmingham, accent, or if you speak this accent, it is quite possible that you lose your job. Another example is a survey by the Institute of Personnel and Development, which confirms that employers tend to look down their noses at those who speak in the accent of Liverpool, Glasgow, and Birmingham. So again, you will be looked down at. You will be looked at down as being inferior if you speak this language. If you speak this accent of Liverpool, the accent of Glasgow, or of Birmingham. And why? Because simply those accents are associated with, say, negative behavior, less trustworthiness, and violence, etc. Effects on language attitudes on education. Gillies and Copeland in 1991, page 45, shows that teachers' perception of pupils' language can influence pupils' academic assessment. Again, so in the school, on an educational level, the teacher can judge his student or his pupils according to their accent, according to the country or the place or the city they come from, and therefore the accent of that city. So we have this quotation by Copeland, 1991, page 45. He says, research indicates that the perception of children's so-called poor speech characteristic leads teachers to make negative inferences about their personalities, social background, and academic abilities. And look how it is the language, it is the accent that the student or the pupil speaks that would affect and give the teacher justification to interfere in this student's life and to interfere in this student's personality, social background, and even the academic ability of that student. So if he is from New York, the teacher would deal with him in a different way from a student who is from London, for example. Depending on the accent that the students speak or the pupils speak, the teacher will respond accordingly. So according to Copeland, the research shows that even teachers have their own perception of children's speech, and they will be judged according to the accent they use. Final exam discussion. Now we have finished this course. This is the last lecture and this is the last point. Before we finish this course, I just want to talk about the exam very quickly. You can still contact me either by email, and we still have the live session lectures that we still have to have from now. For the final exam, very briefly, is that there will be 70 questions, and all of them is a multiple choice question, 1 mark for each questions. As I said, they are multiple choice questions, 4 choices, A, B, C, D, where you are asked to choose the right answer. As we said in the first lecture of this course, that the exam questions will be from the slides that we give through this course. So it is enough to study from the slides. If you prefer to study from the book, it is also possible. It is even perfect. We are using the book as a reference. So if you study from the slides or if you study from the book itself, it is the same. You can depend on the slide, and that's enough. That will be enough for the all questions. And if you decide to study from the book, it is also possible. It is almost identical. It is the same because all those lectures are a summary of what we have in the book. So simply speaking, you can depend on those lectures alone. They are enough for the final exam. Number 4, the exam questions cover all the lectures. So we cannot say that this lecture will have 5 questions and the other lecture will have 10 questions. The exam questions are taken from all the 14 lectures. So in the exam you will have those exam questions are taken from all the lectures. It does not really concentrate on one specific lecture. it tries to cover all the lectures. Well, you will have questions related to all the topics that we have discussed through those 14 lectures. Here we have a sample of some of the exam questions. For example, let's read this one. In the United States, negative and are associated with the Spanish accent speaker. So in the United States, negative and criminal stereotypes, critical stiff types, curly stripe, crispy meal file. So you need to choose the word or the term or the phrase that that can be suitable for filling the missing phrase on the above sentence. So the right answer is also marked in red, so that if you want to go back to your book or to your slide, you'll find that this is the correct or the right answer for this question. So in the United States, negative and criminal stereotypes are associated with the Spanish accent speaker. Number 2, Mexican stereotypes in film and television have one thing in common. Mexican Americans are almost always portrayed as calm, violent, nice, or quiet. So we know that people who speak a Spanish accent or Mexican American accent are usually associated with violence. So they are drug pushers, gang members, and pimps. Third question, matched guise experiment is a method of investigating people's attitude, latitude, attires, tattoos to different languages. We know that the answer to this question is number C, the word attitude, because matched guise experiment is an investigation of people's attitude. What I want you to understand is that the questions will cover everything. You need to concentrate on those ideas that can be exam questions, specifically definition of certain terms which are very much suitable for a multiple choice question, where sometimes we have the term itself not found, and sometimes a word in the explanation or in the definition that is not found. So you need to understand and try to have a good understanding of any definition that we have covered. Another example, speakers tend to use their linguistic identity for different reasons: to diagnose their membership of a particular social group, to distance themselves, etc., to move closer to another. Or which one is the right answer? It is all those possibilities are the answers, because this is actually all of the above choice, where all those possibilities are suitable as an answer for this question. What I want to say is that try to understand all the lectures, try to focus on definitions and ideas that we have covered and you think they can come as a question in the exam, and those which are related to the course itself, because we are studying sociolinguistics, so the exam question will also reflect the type of a question which are really related to this course. This in fact will bring us to the end of this course. This is the last lecture, and as I said, you can contact me anytime. You have my phone number where you can contact me on the office hours time, or you can contact me by email, and we still have the live sessions where you can contact me for any question. Thank you very much.